The atom's heart holds enough energy to power our world, a secret hidden in plain sight. These relaxing facts about nuclear energy are designed to help you unwind. So if you enjoy learning as you fall asleep, do consider liking and subscribing for more bedtime listening. Our own sun is a magnificent, constant nuclear reactor, but it operates on a different principle than the power plants on Earth. While terrestrial reactors use nuclear fission, the splitting of heavy atoms, the sun performs nuclear fusion, the merging of light ones. Deep in its core, under immense pressure and at temperatures of around 15 million degrees Celsius, hydrogen atoms are fused together to form helium. This process, known as the proton-proton chain, converts a tiny fraction of the atom's mass directly into a colossal amount of energy, as described by Einstein's famous equation. This radiant energy travels for over 100,000 years to escape the sun's dense core, and then a mere 8 minutes to cross the vastness of space to our planet, providing the light and warmth that makes life itself possible. It's a gentle reminder that the universe has been harnessing nuclear power for billions of years on a scale we can barely comprehend. Long before humanity even conceived of atoms, Earth operated its own natural nuclear reactors. In a region of West Africa now known as Oklo, Gabon, at least 17 separate reactor sites spontaneously initiated nuclear fission approximately 2 billion years ago. This incredible phenomenon occurred because geological conditions were just right. Deposits of uranium ore were exceptionally rich in the fissile isotope uranium-235 at a concentration of about 3.7%, similar to the levels used in modern light water reactors. Groundwater trickled into these deposits, acting as a natural moderator to slow down neutrons and sustain a chain reaction. These ancient reactors are believed to have operated in cycles, turning on for about 30 minutes until the water boiled away, then shutting down for a few hours until more water cooled the deposit and the process could begin again. They ran gently for hundreds of thousands of years, a silent, subterranean testament to the power sleeping within the Earth's crust. The sheer energy density of nuclear fuel is almost difficult to grasp when compared to conventional sources. A single uranium fuel pellet, typically about the size of a gummy bear, contains the energy equivalent of nearly 1 ton of coal, 149 gallons of oil, or 17,000 cubic feet of natural gas. This means that a typical nuclear power plant, which might be refueled every 18 to 24 months, requires a vastly smaller amount of raw material to generate the same amount of electricity as a fossil fuel plant. To power a major city for a day, a coal plant would need an entire trainload of coal, comprising over 100 cars, while a nuclear plant would use only a few small bundles of fuel rods. This incredible concentration of power is what makes nuclear energy so potent. It unlocks a fundamental force of the universe that is millions of times more powerful than the chemical reactions of burning that powered the Industrial Revolution and still dominate our world today. While Einstein's iconic equation, E equals mc squared, is universally associated with nuclear energy, it doesn't actually explain the mechanism of how an atom splits. Instead, it brilliantly explains why such an immense amount of energy is released. The equation is a statement of universal equivalence. Mass can be converted into energy and energy into mass. When a heavy nucleus like uranium fissions, the resulting smaller nuclei and particles have a slightly lower total mass than the original atom. This tiny amount of missing mass, known as the mass defect, hasn't vanished. It has been converted directly into a tremendous burst of energy, precisely in the amount predicted by the equation. The actual splitting is caused by the delicate and violent interplay between two of the universe's fundamental forces, the strong nuclear force, which glues protons and neutrons together, and the electrostatic force, which causes the positively charged protons to desperately repel each other. The uranium that is mined from the ground is not immediately ready to be used as fuel in most reactors. This is because natural uranium is composed of several different isotopes, which are atoms of the same element with different numbers of neutrons. Over 99.2% of natural uranium is an isotope called uranium-238. While it can be useful in certain types of reactors, U-238 doesn't easily undergo fission. The key ingredient for the most common reactors is uranium-235, which makes up only about 0.7% of natural uranium. This U-235 isotope is fissile, meaning its nucleus can be readily split by a slow-moving neutron, releasing energy and more neutrons to continue the process. To make the fuel effective, the concentration of U-235 must be increased from 0.7% to a level between 3 and 5%. This process is called enrichment, and it's a technologically challenging step that carefully separates the slightly lighter U-235 atoms from their heavier U-238 counterparts. A nuclear chain reaction is a process of beautiful and potentially dangerous precision. It all begins when a single neutron strikes a fissile nucleus, like uranium-235, causing it to split and release energy along with 2 or 3 more neutrons. The goal inside a nuclear reactor is for exactly one of these new neutrons to go on and split another nucleus. This creates a stable, self-sustaining reaction known as criticality, where energy is produced at a steady, controlled rate. If, on average, fewer than one neutron from each fission event causes another fission, the reaction is subcritical and will quickly die out. If more than one neutron causes another fission, the reaction becomes supercritical and the rate of energy release grows exponentially. While a rapidly escalating supercritical reaction is the principle behind an atomic bomb, a reactor is designed to never allow this to happen, maintaining a state of perfect, continuous criticality for months or even years on end. To manage the delicate balance of a chain reaction, nuclear engineers rely on a deceptively simple and elegant tool: control rods. These are long rods made from materials that are exceptional at absorbing neutrons without undergoing fission themselves, such as boron, cadmium, or silver. They essentially act as sponges for the particles that drive the reaction. By inserting these control rods deep into the reactor core, among the fuel assemblies, operators can absorb a large number of neutrons, slowing down or even completely stopping the chain reaction. To increase the reactor's power, the rods are slowly withdrawn, allowing more neutrons to find and split uranium atoms. This system acts as both the accelerator and the brakes of the nuclear process. In an emergency, these rods can be slammed into the core in a matter of seconds, a procedure known as a scram, which immediately absorbs the vast majority of neutrons and shuts down the fission reaction almost instantly. Most nuclear reactors around the world don't use the intense heat from the core to boil water directly. The most common design, the pressurized water reactor, or PWR, uses a clever two-step system to enhance safety and control. Inside the reactor vessel, water in a primary loop is heated by the fission process to an incredibly high temperature, over 300 degrees Celsius, or nearly 600 degrees Fahrenheit. However, this water is kept under immense pressure, about 155 times atmospheric pressure, which prevents it from ever turning into steam. This superheated liquid water is then pumped through thousands of tubes inside a massive heat exchanger called a steam generator. A separate secondary loop of water flows around the outside of these hot tubes. The heat transfers, causing the water in this secondary loop to flash into high-pressure steam. It's this steam that then travels to spin the turbines and generate electricity. This design ensures that the water touching the radioactive fuel never leaves the containment building. There's a quiet irony in the name we use for the building blocks of matter. The word atom is derived from the ancient Greek word atomos, which translates to uncuttable or indivisible. For centuries, philosophers and scientists believed that atoms were the smallest possible constituents of reality, fundamental particles that could not be broken down any further. The entire field of nuclear energy is founded on the discovery that this ancient assumption was profoundly incorrect. The very act of fission is the violent splitting of something once thought to be eternal and unbreakable. It proves that within the supposedly indivisible atom lies an even more fundamental world of protons, neutrons, and the immense forces that bind them. In a way, every time a nuclear reactor generates power, it is a quiet testament to how our understanding of the universe has evolved, revealing layers of reality far more complex and powerful than the ancients could have ever dreamed. Marie Curie is a name synonymous with radioactivity, a titan of science whose notebooks are still so radioactive they must be stored in lead-lined boxes. Her groundbreaking research at the turn of the 20th century laid the essential foundation for nuclear physics. She discovered two new elements, polonium and radium, and was the first person to coin the term radioactivity to describe the mysterious rays emitted by uranium. However, she did not discover nuclear fission. That breakthrough would come decades after her most famous work and a few years after her death. The discovery was made in 1938 by German chemists Otto Hahn and Fritz Strassmann and was correctly explained as nuclear fission by physicists Lise Meitner and her nephew Otto Frisch. Meitner, a brilliant Austrian physicist who had been forced to flee Nazi Germany, realized that Hahn's baffling experimental results could only mean one thing. The uranium nucleus had actually split into smaller parts, releasing a tremendous amount of energy in the process. The discovery that unlocked the nuclear age wasn't a grand explosion, but the quiet confirmation of a tiny, unseen particle. In 1932, physicist James Chadwick finally proved the existence of the neutron, a particle with mass but no electrical charge residing in the atom's core. For years, scientists had been puzzled by the missing mass in the nucleus, knowing that the protons alone couldn't account for its full weight. Chadwick's discovery solved this fundamental mystery, but its true power lay in what it could do. Because the neutron is electrically neutral, it isn't repelled by the positive charge of an atomic nucleus. This made it the perfect projectile, a subatomic key capable of slipping past the atom's defenses and striking its very heart. Scientists could now fire these neutrons into heavy elements like uranium, not to observe them bouncing off, but to see what would happen if they were absorbed. This seemingly simple tool, the ghost in the atomic machine, was the essential first step towards deliberately splitting the atom and releasing its incredible energy. Just 6 years later, on a modest wooden workbench in Berlin, that potential was accidentally realized. In late 1938, chemists Otto Hahn and Fritz Strassmann were performing experiments bombarding uranium with these newly discovered neutrons. They expected to create even heavier transuranic elements, but their results were completely bewildering. Instead of heavier atoms, their analysis kept finding traces of barium, a much lighter element, about half the mass of uranium. Confused, Hahn wrote to his longtime collaborator, Lise Meitner, a brilliant physicist who had recently fled Nazi Germany for Sweden. It was Meitner, discussing the bizarre findings with her nephew Otto Frisch during a walk in the winter snow, who had the breathtaking moment of insight. She realized the uranium nucleus hadn't just been chipped, it had violently split in two. Frisch coined the term fission, borrowing from biology's description of cell division. They calculated that this split would release a staggering amount of energy, perfectly validating Einstein's famous equation E is mc squared, and changing the course of history from a laboratory bench. The concept of a chain reaction, the engine that drives both nuclear power and weapons, was first articulated by the Hungarian physicist Leo Szilard while waiting to cross a London street in 1933. The idea came to him in a flash of inspiration if an element could be found that, when struck by one neutron, would release two or more neutrons, a self-perpetuating cascade of energy release could be created. He imagined a single neutron splitting an atom, which in turn releases two neutrons, which then split two more atoms, releasing 4 neutrons, then 8, then 16, and so on, in an exponential, explosive crescendo. Szilard was so disturbed by the destructive potential of his own idea that he patented it and assigned it to the British Admiralty in an attempt to keep it secret. He understood, perhaps more clearly than anyone at the time, that he had conceived of a fire that could consume the very building blocks of matter, a process that could either power cities or obliterate them, all depending on whether the chain reaction was controlled or left to run wild. This theoretical chain reaction was brought to life for the first time on a cold December day in 1942, not in a sophisticated laboratory, but beneath the abandoned stands of a squash court at the University of Chicago. There, a team led by Enrico Fermi built Chicago Pile 1, the world's first artificial nuclear reactor. It was a deceptively simple-looking structure, a 20-foot-tall pile of 45,000 graphite bricks weighing nearly 400 tons, with lumps of uranium and uranium oxide embedded within them. The graphite acted as a moderator, slowing down the neutrons released from fission to make them more likely to split other uranium atoms. Cadmium-coated control rods were inserted into the pile to absorb neutrons and prevent a reaction from starting prematurely. On December 2nd, Fermi ordered the final control rod to be slowly withdrawn. For 28 minutes, the pile of black bricks and metal silently achieved the world's first self-sustaining nuclear chain reaction, proving that the atom's power could be controlled and marking the true dawn of the nuclear age. The sheer scale and secrecy of the Manhattan Project were unprecedented in the history of science and engineering. To develop the atomic bomb, the United States government secretly established entire cities from scratch, hidden from public view. Oak Ridge, Tennessee, was built to enrich uranium, and at its peak, it consumed more electricity than New York City, its population swelling to 75,000 people who had no idea what they were actually working on. Similarly, Hanford, Washington, was constructed along the Columbia River to produce plutonium, becoming a sprawling industrial complex with over 50,000 workers. The town of Los Alamos, perched on a remote mesa in New Mexico, was created to be the central design and assembly laboratory. The project employed over 130,000 people and cost nearly $2 billion, equivalent to over $30 billion today, all while being completely concealed from Congress and the American public. It was a secret nation within a nation, driven by a singular, world-altering purpose. While the first nuclear reactors were built for war, the first to generate electricity for a civilian power grid was not in America, but in the Soviet Union. On June 27, 1954, the Obninsk nuclear power plant, located about 60 miles southwest of Moscow, was connected to the electricity grid. It was a relatively small reactor, designated AM-1, which stood for Atom Mirny, or Peaceful Atom in Russian. With a net electrical output of only 5 megawatts, it was more of a proof of concept than a large-scale power station, capable of powering only about 2,000 homes. The reactor itself was a graphite-moderated, water-cooled design, a precursor to the ill-fated RBMK reactors used at Chernobyl. Despite its small size and now outdated technology, the Obninsk plant was a monumental achievement. It operated for 48 years before being decommissioned in 2002, serving as a powerful propaganda tool for the Soviets and proving to the world that the atom's fearsome power could indeed be tamed for peaceful, productive use. The United States followed 3 years later, launching its first commercial nuclear power plant in Shippingport, Pennsylvania, in 1957. Unlike the Soviet plant, the Shippingport Atomic Power Station was a much larger and more commercially focused endeavor, designed to generate at least 60 megawatts of electricity. Its development was overseen by the determined Admiral Hyman G. Rickover, often called the father of the nuclear navy. The reactor design used at Shippingport was a pressurized water reactor, or PWR, a direct descendant of the compact and robust reactors developed for the world's first nuclear-powered submarine, the USS Nautilus. This naval heritage meant the reactor was designed for extreme reliability and safety. The plant operated for 25 years, serving not only as a power generator for the Pittsburgh area, but also as a crucial testbed, providing invaluable data and operational experience that would shape the design and regulation of the entire American fleet of commercial nuclear reactors that followed. The global spread of peaceful nuclear technology was largely driven by a pivotal 1953 speech by U.S. President Dwight D. Eisenhower to the United Nations. In his famous Atoms for Peace address, Eisenhower proposed a dramatic shift in nuclear policy. He acknowledged the terrifying threat of nuclear war, but offered a hopeful alternative. A vision where the atomic powers would contribute their fissile materials to an international agency. This agency would then allocate these materials to be used for peaceful purposes, such as generating electricity, advancing medicine, and improving agriculture around the world. The speech was a diplomatic masterstroke, aiming to de-escalate Cold War tensions and rebrand the atom from a symbol of destruction to one of progress and prosperity. It led to the creation of the International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, and kicked off a period of optimism where dozens of countries gained access to reactor technology and nuclear expertise, hoping to build a brighter future powered by the atom. The unsung hero of the nuclear submarine, and by extension, modern nuclear power, is a simple metal, zirconium. Early reactor designs for submarines struggled because the steel used to clad the uranium fuel would corrode rapidly in the hot, high-pressure water. Scientists needed a material that was strong, corrosion-resistant, and, most importantly, transparent to neutrons, meaning it wouldn't absorb them and stop the chain reaction. Zirconium was a promising candidate, but natural zirconium contains about 2% of a sister element, hafnium, which is a voracious absorber of neutrons. The breakthrough came when engineers, under the demanding leadership of Admiral Rickover, developed a complex and expensive process to separate the two elements, producing a purified zirconium alloy called zircaloy. This new material was the perfect fuel cladding. It allowed the creation of compact, long-lasting, and powerful reactors that could fit inside a submarine hull, a technology so successful that its descendants, the pressurized water reactors, now generate the majority of the world's nuclear power. Long before Chernobyl or 3 Mile Island, the world's first fatal reactor accident occurred at a remote military facility in the Idaho desert. On the frigid night of January 3, 1961, an experimental reactor known as SL-1, or Stationary Low Power Reactor No. 1, exploded violently. The reactor was designed to be a small, portable prototype for powering distant radar stations. During a maintenance shutdown, a single control rod was withdrawn too far, too fast, causing the reactor to go prompt critical, an almost instantaneous and massive surge of power. In just 4 milliseconds, the water inside the reactor core flashed to steam, and the resulting pressure wave blasted the 26,000-pound reactor vessel 9 feet into the air. The explosion killed all 3 military operators on site, one of whom was impaled to the ceiling by a piece of the reactor's shield plug. The incident was a sobering early lesson in reactor safety, highlighting the catastrophic consequences of human error and the critical importance of designing reactors with inherent safety mechanisms that can override operator mistakes. The fuel at the heart of a nuclear reactor doesn't resemble a liquid or a gas, but something far more stable, a ceramic. The uranium dioxide is formed into small, black, cylindrical pellets, each about the size of a gummy bear. These pellets are then baked at over 1700 degrees Celsius, making them incredibly dense and hard, with a melting point far higher than the metal cladding that will eventually surround them. This ceramic nature is a crucial, built-in safety feature. Even in extreme conditions, the solid fuel pellets are designed to trap the vast majority of the radioactive fission products directly within their own crystalline structure, preventing them from easily escaping. The energy contained within just one of these tiny pellets is immense, equivalent to that of nearly a ton of coal, 3 barrels of oil, or 17,000 cubic feet of natural gas, all packed into a form smaller than the tip of your little finger. These ceramic fuel pellets are not placed into the reactor core on their own. Instead, they are carefully stacked into long, thin tubes made of a remarkable metal alloy. This material, typically a zirconio alloy known as zircaloy, is chosen for a very specific and almost magical property. It's nearly transparent to neutrons. For a chain reaction to sustain itself, the neutrons released from one fission event must be able to travel freely to strike other uranium atoms. If the container holding the fuel absorbed too many of these neutrons, the reaction would simply fizzle out. Zircaloy allows neutrons to pass through unimpeded, while providing a strong, corrosion-resistant barrier that contains the fuel pellets and the radioactive gases that are slowly produced during fission. Each of these sealed tubes, called a fuel rod, is the first of several critical layers of containment separating the nuclear process from the outside world. To manage the immense power of the chain reaction, nuclear operators rely on a beautifully simple concept, the control rod. These are rods made from materials that act like sponges for neutrons, such as boron, silver, indium, or cadmium. When these control rods are fully inserted into the reactor core, they soak up so many of the free-flying neutrons that a sustained chain reaction becomes impossible. To start the reactor, or increase its power, the operators slowly and precisely withdraw the control rods. This allows more neutrons to find their targets, and the rate of fission increases. By adjusting the position of these rods with millimeter precision, the reactor's power output can be finely tuned to match the demands of the electrical grid. They are, in essence, the accelerator and the brakes for the nuclear furnace, allowing for a reaction of incredible power to be managed with gentle and deliberate control. One of the most counterintuitive principles of many reactor designs is that the neutrons released by fission are initially moving too fast to be effective. To sustain the chain reaction, these fast neutrons must be slowed down to what are called thermal speeds, where they are much more likely to be captured by another uranium-235 nucleus.
This slowing down process is handled by a substance called a moderator. In the most common type of reactors, the moderator is simply ordinary water. The fast neutrons collide with the hydrogen nuclei in the water molecules, much like a fast-moving billiard ball hitting a stationary one.
With each collision, the neutron transfers some of its energy to the hydrogen atom and slows down, all without being absorbed. After a series of these subatomic collisions, the neutron has lost enough energy to efficiently cause another fission event, allowing the gentle, continuous hum of the chain reaction to proceed. The intense heat generated within the reactor core needs to be carried away to do useful work, And this is the job of the coolant. In a pressurized water reactor, the same water that acts as the moderator also serves as the primary coolant. This water is pumped through the core under immense pressure, around 155 times atmospheric pressure. This extreme pressure allows the water to be heated to over 300 degrees Celsius without ever boiling into steam. This superheated, pressurized water then flows out of the reactor vessel in a closed loop, carrying the thermal energy from the core. This primary loop is completely sealed, and the water within it becomes slightly radioactive over time. It is a powerful, invisible river of heat, contained entirely within a high-strength plumbing system, its sole purpose to transfer the energy of the atom to the next stage of the power generation process. The transfer of heat from the radioactive primary loop to the non-radioactive secondary loop happens inside colossal components called steam generators. These are essentially massive heat exchangers, often standing several stories tall. The incredibly hot, pressurized water from the reactor core flows through thousands of U-shaped tubes inside the steam generator. A separate, clean water supply is pumped into the generator surrounding the outside of these hot tubes. The heat passes through the metal walls of the tubes so efficiently that this secondary water flashes instantly into vast quantities of high-pressure steam. This brilliant design ensures that the water that touched the reactor core never mixes with the steam that will spin the turbines. It is a fundamental safety barrier, using the simple transfer of heat to isolate radioactivity while harnessing its power. Thinking about these quiet, unseen processes makes me wonder, what's the most complex machine you've ever seen up close in person? Let me know in the comments if a memory comes to mind as you drift and relax. Surrounding the entire reactor and the steam generators is the most visible and iconic feature of a nuclear power plant, the containment building. This enormous, dome-shaped structure is an incredible feat of civil engineering designed as the ultimate line of defense. The walls are typically over a meter thick, made from heavily reinforced concrete and lined on the inside with a thick, leak-proof steel plate. This structure is built to withstand almost any imaginable external event, from a direct airplane impact to a powerful earthquake or tornado. More importantly, it is designed to completely contain the immense energy and pressure that would be released in the event of a severe internal accident, preventing any radioactive materials from escaping into the environment. It stands as a silent, powerful guardian, a testament to the defense-in-depth philosophy that underpins the entire design of the plant, ensuring safety is layered and robust. In the event of an emergency, a reactor needs to be shut down almost instantaneously. This rapid shutdown procedure is universally known by the wonderfully dramatic name SCRAM. While the exact origin of the term is debated, one popular story claims it was an acronym for Safety Control Rod Axeman, a reference to the very first nuclear reactor, where a man with an axe was supposedly assigned to cut a rope that would drop the control rods if necessary. In a modern reactor, the process is far more sophisticated but relies on the same fail-safe principle: gravity. The control rods are typically held above the reactor core by powerful electromagnets. To scram the reactor, the power to these magnets is simply cut. The rods are no longer held up and instantly fall under their own weight deep into the core, absorbing neutrons and halting the chain reaction within 2 to 3 seconds. The delicate nuclear balance inside a reactor can be disrupted by the very products it creates. As uranium atoms split, they produce a wide variety of fission products, which are essentially the leftover pieces. One of these, an isotope called xenon-135, is a particularly voracious absorber of neutrons. It's what's known as a neutron poison. During normal operation, this xenon is created and then burned away by neutron absorption at a predictable rate. However, if a reactor is shut down, the production of xenon from the decay of another fission product continues for a time, but it is no longer being burned away. This causes a massive buildup of xenon-135, which can effectively poison the reactor, soaking up so many neutrons that it becomes impossible to restart the chain reaction for a day or two until the xenon naturally decays away on its own. Beyond the mechanical control rods, operators have another, more subtle tool for managing the reactor's power over long periods. In many reactors, the water used as the coolant and moderator contains a carefully controlled amount of dissolved boric acid. Boron is an excellent neutron absorber, just like the materials in the control rods. By slightly increasing or decreasing the concentration of boric acid in the water, operators can make fine adjustments to the overall reactivity of the core. This is particularly useful for compensating for the slow depletion of the uranium fuel over months of operation. As the fuel is used up, the concentration of boric acid is gradually reduced to maintain a steady power output. It acts as a kind of liquid control rod, uniformly distributed throughout the entire core, providing a slow, gentle, and highly precise method of control. While the image of a vast open-pit mine might come to mind when thinking of uranium, the most common method used today is far more subtle and gentle on the landscape. It's called in situ leaching, or solution mining, and it accounts for over half of the world's uranium production. Instead of digging up rock, this process works more like making coffee with a percolator deep underground. Wells are drilled into a porous, uranium-rich sandstone deposit that is trapped between impermeable layers of clay. A mild, oxygen-rich solution, often containing bicarbonate, is then gently pumped down into the deposit. This solution doesn't break the rock, it simply flows through the natural pores and dissolves the uranium, selectively coaxing it out of the sandstone. This uranium-rich water is then pumped back to the surface through other wells. The entire process leaves the surface landscape almost completely undisturbed, with only a series of small wellheads visible. It avoids the large waste rock piles and tailings dams associated with conventional mining, making it an environmentally quieter way to begin the journey of nuclear fuel. Once the dissolved uranium is brought to the surface, it is processed at a milling facility to create a coarse powder known as yellow cake. Despite its name, this material is rarely the bright yellow color one might imagine. Its hue can range from yellowish-orange to khaki-green or even nearly black, depending on the specific impurities and drying temperature used during its production. The name simply stuck from the early days of uranium processing. This powder, officially uranium oxide concentrate, or U3O8, is the first standardized, transportable form of uranium in the fuel cycle. While it is radioactive, it is only mildly so, primarily emitting alpha particles, which are easily stopped by a sheet of paper or even human skin. You could safely stand next to a sealed drum of yellow cake. It is not fissile and cannot be used to generate a nuclear reaction in this state. It is simply the raw, concentrated essence of the ore, patiently waiting for the next, more transformative steps on its path to becoming fuel. The next challenge in the nuclear fuel cycle is a curious one of chemical states. In order to separate the different types of uranium atoms, the solid yellow cake powder must be transformed into a gas. This is achieved through a multi-stage chemical process that converts the uranium oxide into a remarkable compound called uranium hexafluoride, or UF6. This substance is unique because it has a very low sublimation point, meaning it can turn directly from a solid into a gas at a relatively low temperature, just over 56 degrees Celsius under normal atmospheric pressure. When cooled, it forms a pale, crystalline solid that looks like salt. When gently heated, it becomes a dense, colorless gas. This gaseous form is absolutely essential for the next step, enrichment, because it allows the individual uranium atoms to move freely. Working with this substance requires extreme care, as it is highly reactive with water, forming a corrosive acid. Therefore, the entire conversion and enrichment process must be conducted in an environment of absolute dryness and containment. The whole reason for this complex chemical transformation lies in the subtle atomic difference between the two main types of uranium. The vast majority of natural uranium, over 99.2%, is an isotope called uranium-238. It's heavy and stable, but it cannot sustain a chain reaction. The key to nuclear power is the much rarer isotope, uranium-235, which makes up only about 0.3%. 7% of natural uranium. This is the fissile isotope, the one whose nucleus can be readily split by a slow-moving neutron, releasing immense energy. The only difference between these two atoms is that U-238 has 3 more neutrons in its nucleus, making it just slightly heavier. This tiny difference in mass, a little over 1%, is the only property that can be exploited to separate them. The task of enrichment, therefore, is to increase the concentration of that precious 0.7% of U-235 up to the 3 to 5% needed for most commercial nuclear reactors. It is a painstaking process, like trying to pick out specific grains of sand from a beach. For many decades, the primary method for this painstaking separation was a brute force industrial process called gaseous diffusion. The scale of this undertaking was almost unimaginable. A gaseous diffusion plant consisted of thousands of stages, housed in enormous buildings that were among the largest in the world, some stretching for nearly a mile. Inside, the uranium hexafluoride gas was pumped at high pressure against a series of porous barriers, like incredibly fine filters. According to Graham's law of effusion, lighter gas molecules pass through a porous barrier slightly faster than heavier ones. So, the gas that made it through the barrier would be ever so slightly richer in the lighter uranium-235 isotope. This tiny gain then had to be repeated again and again, thousands of times, with the slightly enriched gas from one stage being pumped to the next. The process was effective but monumentally inefficient, consuming vast quantities of electricity. At one point, the plants in the United States were using a significant fraction of the entire country's electrical output. Today, gaseous diffusion has been almost entirely replaced by a far more elegant and efficient technology, the gas centrifuge. This method also uses uranium hexafluoride gas, but instead of forcing it through filters, it spins it at incredible speeds inside a tall, spinning cylinder. The centrifuges rotate at such high velocities, often exceeding the speed of sound, that they generate immense centrifugal forces, hundreds of thousands of times stronger than Earth's gravity. Just as a spin dryer pulls water to the outside of the drum, the centrifuge pulls the heavier uranium-238 atoms toward the cylinder's outer wall. Meanwhile, the slightly lighter uranium-235 atoms tend to congregate more towards the center. Scoops at the top and bottom of the centrifuge can then draw off the streams of slightly enriched and slightly depleted gas. By linking thousands of these centrifuges together in long chains called cascades, the concentration of U-235 can be gradually increased to the required level. This method uses less than 5% of the electricity of gaseous diffusion, making enrichment a much less energy-intensive process. An even more advanced method of enrichment, which feels like it's pulled from the pages of science fiction, involves the use of lasers. Known as laser isotope separation, or AVLIs, this technique is a marvel of precision. It relies on the fact that the uranium-235 and uranium-238 atoms, due to their slight mass difference, absorb very specific frequencies of light. The process begins by vaporizing uranium metal with an electron beam. A carefully tuned laser is then fired through this cloud of uranium vapor. The laser's frequency is set so that it is absorbed only by the uranium-235 atoms, exciting them and giving them a positive electrical charge. The uranium-238 atoms, being out of tune, are left untouched by the laser light and remain neutral. An electromagnetic field is then applied to the vapor cloud, which attracts the now charged U-235 atoms and pulls them onto a collection plate, physically separating them from the U-238. While this technology has proven difficult to scale up to an industrial level, its potential for near-perfect single-step separation makes it a tantalizing glimpse into the future of nuclear fuel production. Once the uranium hexafluoride gas has been enriched to the desired level, typically between 3 and 5% U-235, it must be converted back into a stable, solid form suitable for a reactor. The gas is subjected to another chemical process, this time turning it into uranium dioxide, or UO2. This material is a black, ceramic-like powder that is exceptionally stable and has a very high melting point, well over 2,800 degrees Celsius, making it ideal for the extreme environment inside a reactor core. This powder is then pressed under immense pressure into small, cylindrical pellets, each roughly the size of a fingertip. These pellets are then sintered, which means they are baked in a high-temperature furnace, often in a hydrogen atmosphere, for several hours. This process causes the powder grains to fuse together, creating a hard, dense, and stable ceramic pellet. The precision is remarkable. Each pellet must be manufactured to exact dimensions to ensure predictable performance in the reactor. A single one of these small, unassuming black pellets contains an incredible amount of latent energy. One pellet, weighing only about 7 grams, holds the energy equivalent of nearly 150 gallons of oil, 1 ton of coal, or 17,000 cubic feet of natural gas. However, these pellets cannot simply be placed into a reactor, they must be safely contained. To do this, the pellets are carefully inspected and then stacked, one on top of the other, into long, thin tubes. These tubes are made from a special metal alloy called zircaloy, which is composed primarily of zirconium. This material is chosen for a very specific set of properties. It is highly resistant to corrosion in the high-temperature, high-pressure water of a reactor. It is strong enough to contain the fuel and the gaseous byproducts of fission, and, most importantly, it has a very low neutron absorption cross-section. This means it is effectively transparent to neutrons, allowing them to pass through the cladding to reach other fuel pellets and sustain the chain reaction, rather than being wastefully absorbed by the container itself. The final step in fuel fabrication is to gather these long, sealed fuel rods into a precisely engineered bundle known as a fuel assembly. A typical assembly for a pressurized water reactor is a square grid, often holding over 200 fuel rods. These rods are held in place by spacer grids at various intervals along their length, which prevent them from bowing or vibrating in the turbulent coolant flow. Some positions in the grid are left empty or are fitted with guide thimbles, which allow control rods to slide in and out of the core to regulate the nuclear reaction. The completed fuel assembly is a masterpiece of nuclear engineering, a carefully arranged structure of fuel and metal that is both incredibly robust and delicately balanced. It is this finished assembly, weighing over half a ton, that is finally ready to be transported to a nuclear power plant, where it will be carefully loaded into the reactor core to begin its years-long mission of quietly generating vast amounts of clean electricity. While most of the world's nuclear energy comes from a family of reactors that use water as a coolant, the most common design is the pressurized water reactor, or PWR. Imagine a system of 2 distinct loops of water, forever separate yet intimately connected. In the first loop, water flows directly through the reactor core, absorbing the immense heat from nuclear fission. But this water is kept under incredibly high pressure, around 155 times the atmospheric pressure at sea level. This intense pressure prevents the water from boiling, even as its temperature soars to over 300 degrees Celsius. This superheated, high-pressure water then flows into a massive component called a steam generator. Here, it runs through thousands of tubes, transferring its heat to a second, separate loop of water at a lower pressure. This second loop of water instantly flashes into high-pressure steam, which then drives the turbines. The original water, now slightly cooler, is pumped back to the reactor core to repeat the cycle. This elegant two-loop design ensures that the water touching the radioactive core never comes into contact with the turbines, providing an extra layer of safety and containment. A close relative to this design takes a more direct approach to generating power. This is the boiling water reactor, or BWR. Instead of using two separate water loops, a BWR allows the water flowing through the reactor core to boil directly inside the reactor pressure vessel itself. The pressure within a BWR is about half that of a PWR, allowing the water to turn to steam as it absorbs the fission heat. This steam rises to the top of the reactor vessel, where it is collected and piped directly to the turbines to generate electricity. After spinning the turbines, the steam is condensed back into water and returned to the reactor core to be heated again. This single-loop system is simpler in some ways, but it means that the steam touching the turbines has passed through the radioactive core. This requires shielding around the turbines and careful management, but it also eliminates the need for the massive steam generators found in a PWR, creating a more compact, though fundamentally different plant design. While most reactors rely on enriched uranium, a remarkable design from Canada operates using uranium in its natural, unenriched state. Known as the CANDU reactor, which stands for Canada Deuterium Uranium, its secret lies in using a different kind of water. Instead of ordinary light water, the CANDU reactor uses heavy water as its moderator and coolant. In heavy water, the hydrogen atoms are replaced by deuterium, a heavier isotope of hydrogen. This heavy water is exceptionally good at slowing down neutrons without absorbing them, making the fission chain reaction efficient enough to work with the low concentration of fissile material found in natural uranium. This unique capability is paired with another incredible feature: online refueling. Instead of shutting down for weeks to replace fuel rods, the CANDU design allows individual fuel bundles to be replaced while the reactor is still operating at full power, resulting in some of the highest operational availability rates of any reactor type in the world. The history of nuclear reactors is often categorized into generations, much like advancements in mobile phones or jet aircraft. The very first reactors of the 1950s and 60s are considered Generation 1. These were the prototypes, the experimental pioneers that proved commercial nuclear power was possible. The vast majority of reactors operating around the world today belong to Generation 2. These are the workhorse designs, like the PWRs and BWRs, that were largely built from the 1970s through the 1990s. They have proven to be reliable and are the backbone of the world's nuclear fleet. However, following accidents like 3 Mile Island and Chernobyl, engineers began designing the next evolution. These were Generation 3 reactors, which incorporated significant safety improvements, standardized designs for quicker construction, and longer operational lifetimes. They represented a major step forward, a direct response to the lessons learned from decades of operating the earlier generation of nuclear power plants. The latest reactors coming online today are a further refinement, known as Generation 3+. Their defining characteristic is a philosophy of passive safety. This means that in the event of an emergency, the reactor can cool itself without needing any human intervention or external power for an extended period, often up to 72 hours. Instead of relying on diesel generators and electrically powered pumps to circulate cooling water, these designs harness the fundamental forces of nature. For example, Some designs place a massive tank of water above the reactor containment vessel. If all power is lost, a valve opens automatically and gravity simply pulls the water down to cool the reactor vessel from the outside. Other systems use natural circulation, where the heating of water or gas causes it to rise, creating a continuous cooling loop powered by physics itself, not by machines that can fail. This shift towards reliance on immutable laws of nature represents one of the most significant leaps in nuclear safety technology. Looking to the future, scientists are developing what they call Generation 4 reactors, which represent a radical departure from current designs. One of the most fascinating concepts is the molten salt reactor, or MSR. In an MSR, the nuclear fuel isn't solid uranium pellets in metal rods. Instead, it's dissolved directly into a carrier salt, typically a mixture of fluoride or chloride salts, creating a radioactive liquid that flows through the reactor core. This salt mixture has an incredibly high boiling point, meaning the reactor can operate at very high temperatures, but at low, near-atmospheric pressures, eliminating the risks associated with high-pressure systems. The design is inherently safe. If the reactor overheats, a specially designed freeze plug made of the same salt melts, and the liquid fuel drains by gravity into a passively cooled containment tank, where the nuclear reaction naturally stops. These reactors could also be designed to consume existing nuclear waste, turning long-lived radioactive elements into more stable or shorter-lived ones. Another promising Generation 4 design focuses on creating a reactor that is physically incapable of melting down. The high-temperature gas-cooled reactor achieves this through its remarkable fuel. The uranium is formed into tiny kernels, each smaller than a poppy seed. Each kernel is then coated in 4 layers of extremely durable ceramic and carbon materials. This creates a tiny, self-contained pressure vessel for each particle of fuel. Billions of these particles, known as trisofuel, are then compacted into spheres or hexagonal blocks. The reactor is cooled not by water, but by an inert gas, like helium, which can reach much higher temperatures without boiling. The result is a system so robust that even if the entire plant lost all power and all cooling, the trisofuel particles themselves would contain the radioactive materials and prevent a meltdown. The heat would simply dissipate passively into the surrounding structures, making the reactor a walk-away safe design. While most current reactors use slow or thermal neutrons to sustain a chain reaction, another type of Generation 4 reactor uses fast, high-energy neutrons. These are known as fast reactors, and they offer a truly extraordinary benefit. They can act as nuclear waste incinerators. A sodium-cooled fast reactor, for instance, uses liquid sodium as a coolant instead of water. Liquid sodium is a metal that is excellent at transferring heat, and it doesn't slow down neutrons. These fast neutrons can split atoms that are not fissionable by slow neutrons, including elements like plutonium and other long-lived actinides that make up the most hazardous components of nuclear waste. In effect, a fast reactor can be fueled by the waste produced by conventional reactors, transmuting it into elements with much shorter half-lives while generating enormous amounts of carbon-free electricity. This ability to close the fuel cycle could dramatically reduce the volume and long-term radiotoxicity of nuclear waste. Not all future reactors are designed to be gigantic power stations. A new and rapidly developing category is the Small Modular Reactor, or SMR. The core idea is to move away from massive, custom-built plants and instead manufacture smaller, standardized reactor modules in a factory setting. These modules, typically producing under 300 megawatts of electricity, would be small enough to be transported by truck, train, or barge to their destination. This approach promises to dramatically reduce construction costs and timelines. An SMR could power a remote town, a large industrial facility, or a desalination plant. Multiple modules could be combined at a single site to create a larger power plant, adding capacity as needed. Their smaller size also allows for innovative passive safety systems, with many designs being built underground for enhanced security. This shift to smaller, factory-produced reactors could completely change the economic landscape and accessibility of nuclear energy. Beyond the uranium-plutonium fuel cycle that has dominated the nuclear age, there lies an alternative path powered by a different element: thorium. Thorium itself is not fissile, meaning it cannot sustain a chain reaction on its own. However, when it absorbs a neutron, it transforms into uranium-233, which is an excellent nuclear fuel. A thorium reactor is therefore a breeder reactor, creating its own fuel from abundant thorium. Thorium is about 3 to 4 times more common in the Earth's crust than uranium, and reactors designed to use it produce far less long-lived transuranic waste. Furthermore, the thorium fuel cycle is inherently more proliferation resistant, as it's very difficult to make weaponizable material from it. While a commercial-scale thorium reactor has yet to be built, the concept holds immense promise as a cleaner, safer, and more sustainable future for nuclear power. Does thinking about these intricate, self-regulating systems of the future bring you a sense of calm, or does it spark your curiosity? I'd love to hear what thoughts drift through your mind as you listen. In the heart of every nuclear reactor lies a system designed for a single, critical moment: the emergency shutdown. The evocative name for this action is a scram, and while its origin is debated, one popular story traces it to the earliest days of nuclear research with Enrico Fermi. Legend holds that a designated safety control rod axeman stood ready to cut a rope with an axe, allowing a gravity-fed control rod to fall into the reactor and halt the chain reaction. While this tale may be more folklore than fact, the principle remains. A scram is designed to be fail-safe and instantaneous. Modern systems don't use an axeman, but they do rely on unstoppable forces like gravity, powerful springs, or pressurized gas. The moment a sensor detects an anomaly, the control rods are released and driven into the core in seconds, absorbing neutrons and shutting the fission process down cold. This entire sequence is engineered to function even if the plant loses all external and internal electrical power, ensuring that the first and most important safety action can always be taken. Should that ultimate safety measure fail, a cascade of events could lead to what is often dramatically and incorrectly called the China Syndrome. The term, popularized by a 1979 film, paints a terrifying picture of a molten reactor core melting through the concrete containment building, through the Earth's crust, and theoretically emerging in China. In reality, this is a physical impossibility. While a core meltdown, where the fuel overheats and turns into a lava-like substance called corium, is a real and severe accident scenario, its journey is short-lived. The immense heat would cause it to melt through the steel reactor vessel and spill onto the concrete floor of the containment building. But here, the laws of physics take over. The corium would spread out, reacting with the concrete, dissolving it, and incorporating it into its own mass. This process rapidly increases its volume and surface area, allowing it to cool far more effectively. It would solidify long before burrowing more than a few meters, a contained and manageable, though still deeply serious, industrial accident. In a remarkable display of proactive engineering, the latest generation of nuclear reactors are designed with a specific answer to that worst-case scenario. Below the main reactor vessel sits a device known as a core catcher. This is not merely a reinforced floor, but a sophisticated, multi-layered basin engineered to safely receive, manage, and cool an entire molten core. Some designs feature immense basins filled with special ceramics that can withstand extreme temperatures and help spread the corium out to cool it faster. Others are designed to be flooded with cooling water from dedicated tanks that function passively using gravity. This feature essentially pre-plans for the unthinkable, creating a final, definitive barrier. A core catcher ensures that even in the event of a complete meltdown, the radioactive material remains contained and controlled within the plant, transforming a potential catastrophe into a predictable and manageable engineering problem. It is the ultimate safety net, built to catch a falling star. Guarding against such accidents and the misuse of nuclear materials is a global responsibility, spearheaded by the International Atomic Energy Agency, or IAEA. Established in 1957, this United Nations body walks a fascinating tightrope. Its primary mission is to promote the peaceful applications of nuclear science and technology, helping countries harness atomic energy for medicine, agriculture, and electricity. Yet, it has an equally critical and often more famous second mandate: to act as the world's nuclear watchdog. Through a comprehensive system of safeguards, the IAEA verifies that civilian nuclear material is not secretly diverted to military programs. This involves deploying inspectors to facilities around the world, installing tamper-proof cameras and sensors for remote monitoring, and meticulously accounting for every gram of fissile material. It is a delicate dance of diplomacy, forensic science, and international trust, ensuring the atom remains a tool for peace, not an instrument of war. Perhaps the most astonishing demonstration of turning nuclear threat into peaceful promise was the megatons to megawatts program. Following the end of the Cold War, this bilateral agreement between the United States and Russia achieved something extraordinary. Over a 20-year period, from 1993 to 2013, Russia dismantled its excess nuclear warheads and extracted the highly enriched weapons-grade uranium. This material was then diluted, or downblended, with other uranium to convert it into low-enriched uranium, the standard fuel for commercial power reactors. The United States purchased this fuel, which was then used in American nuclear plants to generate electricity for homes and businesses. The scale of the program was breathtaking. In total, 500 metric tons of Russian bomb-grade uranium, equivalent to 20,000 nuclear warheads, were eliminated. For 2 decades, a staggering 10% of all electricity in the United States was generated by fuel that had once been pointed at its own cities. Does hearing stories of swords being turned into plowshares, or, in this case, bombs into light bulbs, give you a sense of hope for the future as you drift off to sleep? This culture of safety extends deep into the design philosophy of every nuclear plant, built upon the principles of redundancy and diversity. Redundancy means that for every critical safety component, like a cooling pump or a diesel generator, there is at least one identical, independent backup ready to take over instantly if the primary one fails. But engineers plan for even more unlikely events, which is where diversity comes in. A diverse system is a backup that works on a completely different principle. For example, if the main electric-powered cooling pumps fail, and the backup electric pumps also fail due to a station-wide blackout, a diverse system might kick in. A third set of pumps powered not by electricity, but directly by steam from the reactor itself. Beyond that, there are often passive systems that require no power at all, using natural convection to circulate coolant. This layered, multifaceted approach ensures that a single type of failure, no matter how widespread, cannot defeat the entire safety network. The way regulators think about these complex safety systems was fundamentally changed by a groundbreaking 1975 study known as the Rasmussen Report. Commissioned by the U.S. government and led by MIT physicist Norman Rasmussen, it was the first comprehensive attempt to apply a technique called probabilistic risk assessment to nuclear reactors. Instead of just imagining worst-case scenarios, the team meticulously calculated the actual statistical probability of each component failing, and then combined those probabilities to determine the overall likelihood of a major accident. The study, formally titled WASH 1400, came to a startling conclusion. The risk of a person being killed by a nuclear power plant accident was extraordinarily low, roughly equivalent to the risk of being struck by a meteor. While the report's specific numbers were debated for years, its methodology was revolutionary. It shifted the entire focus of nuclear regulation from a deterministic what-if approach to a probabilistic how-likely approach, allowing engineers to focus their efforts on the most credible and significant risks. While we often picture a plant's safety in the form of its massive concrete dome, the first and most important line of defense is microscopic by comparison. It is the fuel cladding, the thin metal tube that encases each small pellet of uranium fuel. Typically made from a zirconium alloy, this cladding is a marvel of material science, a tiny fortress tasked with an immense challenge. It must hermetically seal the intensely radioactive fuel and the gaseous fission products that build up inside, preventing them from ever touching the cooling water that flows around them. It must do this for years on end, while being subjected to an almost unimaginable assault. Extreme temperatures well over 300 degrees Celsius, crushing pressures, and a constant, intense bombardment of neutron radiation that seeks to degrade its very structure. The integrity of this humble-looking tube is paramount. It is the primary containment barrier, and its resilience is the bedrock upon which all other nuclear safety systems are built. Looking beyond the safety of a single plant, scientists are also redesigning the nuclear fuel cycle itself to address the global risk of weapons proliferation. They are developing what are known as proliferation-resistant fuel cycles, which use clever nuclear chemistry to make the materials unattractive for bomb makers. The thorium fuel cycle, for instance, produces a fissile isotope called uranium-233. While this can be used in a weapon, the process unavoidably creates contaminants, particularly uranium-232, whose decay chain emits hard, highly penetrating gamma rays. This intense radiation makes the material extremely hazardous to handle and would require massive, complex remote-controlled equipment to process into a weapon, a significant deterrent. Other approaches involve denaturing plutonium by mixing it with other isotopes like plutonium-238, which generates so much heat it could cause a weapon to pre-detonate or fail. These strategies aim to decouple the peaceful atom from the military one, making it possible to expand nuclear power globally without increasing nuclear risk. This global commitment to safety is formally enshrined in an international treaty called the Convention on Nuclear Safety. What makes this agreement unique is not a set of rigid, enforceable laws, but a system of formalized peer pressure. Every 3 years, all signatory nations, which includes nearly every country with a nuclear power program, must submit a detailed national report. This document outlines exactly how they are meeting the Convention's safety principles, covering everything from plant design and operation to regulatory oversight. Then, representatives from all countries gather for a review meeting where they openly question and critique each other's reports. This process encourages a transparent, collaborative environment where best practices are shared and nations are held accountable by their international peers. It reinforces the profound understanding that in the world of nuclear energy, safety standards are not merely a national concern, but a shared global responsibility, because the consequences of a failure know no borders. The most infamous relic of the Chernobyl disaster is a monstrous mass known as the elephant's foot. Formed in the catastrophe's aftermath, it is not a single object, but a solidified flow of melted nuclear fuel, concrete, sand, and shielding material that oozed its way down into the basement of the reactor building. This black, wrinkled substance, resembling the foot of a giant elephant, is a form of corium. When it was first discovered, months after the accident, it was so intensely radioactive that standing near it for just 300 seconds would have delivered a lethal dose of radiation. The radiation was so powerful, it even fogged the camera film of the remote-controlled robots sent to photograph it. Over the decades, the elephant's foot has cooled and cracked, and its radioactivity has decayed significantly. Yet it remains one of the most dangerous concentrations of radioactive material on the planet, a silent, frozen testament to the sheer power unleashed in the meltdown. Long before Chernobyl, the United Kingdom experienced its own worst nuclear accident, the Windscale fire of 1957. The accident occurred in a reactor designed to produce plutonium for military purposes. The reactor's core was a massive block of graphite, which had to be periodically heated in a controlled manner to release a stored-up energy known as Wigner energy. During one of these heating cycles, the process went awry, and a cartridge of uranium fuel ruptured, igniting the surrounding graphite. The fire burned for 3 days, releasing a dangerous cloud of radioactive material across the UK and Europe. In a moment of incredible tension, engineers made the daring decision to douse the fire with water, a huge gamble, as it could have reacted with molten metal to create an explosive hydrogen bubble. Fortunately, the gamble paid off, and the fire was extinguished, but not before causing a significant spike in local cancer rates in the years that followed. Even earlier, and shrouded in secrecy for decades, was the Kyshtym disaster in the Soviet Union in 1957. This was not a reactor meltdown, but an explosion in a nuclear waste storage facility. At the Mayak plutonium production plant, a faulty cooling system in a tank containing 80 tons of liquid radioactive waste failed. The temperature inside soared, eventually causing a massive chemical explosion, equivalent to about 70 tons of TNT. The blast was powerful enough to blow off the tank's 160-ton concrete lid and release a plume of radioactive particles that contaminated over 20,000 square kilometers. The incident, which was hidden from the world until 1976, created a permanent exclusion zone known as the East Ural Radioactive Trace. It remains one of the most significant and least known nuclear accidents in history, a stark reminder of the dangers posed not just by reactors, but by the waste they produce. In the United States, the accident at 3 Mile Island in 1979 became a pivotal moment for the nuclear industry, not because of its radiological impact, but because of its psychological one. A combination of a stuck valve and confusing control room indicators led operators to make a series of critical errors, causing a partial meltdown of the reactor core. While the reactor's containment building successfully did its job, preventing a major release of radiation into the environment, the event sparked widespread fear and public distrust. The confusing news reports and the evacuation of pregnant women and children created a media firestorm. In the end, the official health effects on the public were deemed negligible, but the damage to the industry's reputation was immense. In the wake of 3 Mile Island, orders for new nuclear reactors in the United States completely dried up for over 3 decades, effectively freezing the growth of nuclear power in the country. The 2011 Fukushima Daiichi disaster in Japan was a cascading failure, triggered not by one event, but by 2. First, the plant was struck by the 4th most powerful earthquake ever recorded. To its credit, the reactor's seismic safety systems worked perfectly. The reactors automatically shut down as designed, and the facility withstood the violent shaking. The true catastrophe arrived 14 meters high, and about 50 minutes later, the tsunami. The plant's seawall was built to withstand a wave of just under 6 meters. The colossal wall of water that slammed into the coast easily overtopped this defense, flooding the entire site. Critically, this water knocked out the emergency diesel generators, which were located in the basements of the turbine buildings. Without this backup power to run the cooling pumps, the residual heat from the shut-down reactors could not be carried away, leading to 3 catastrophic nuclear meltdowns. The sheer human scale of the response to Chernobyl is often encapsulated in the term liquidators. This was not a small team of specialists, but a massive mobilization of an estimated 600,000 soldiers, firefighters, miners, and civilian volunteers from all over the Soviet Union. Their jobs were incredibly varied and dangerous. The first firefighters on the scene tackled the initial blazes with little to no protection. Military personnel were flown in helicopters to drop sand, lead, and boron onto the burning reactor core. Perhaps most heroically, thousands of coal miners were brought in to rapidly dig a tunnel beneath the melting reactor. They worked around the clock in intense heat and high radiation to create a space for a heat exchanger to be installed, a desperate and ultimately successful measure to prevent the molten core from burning through the foundation and contaminating the groundwater. Their collective sacrifice prevented an even worse catastrophe. While most major accidents involve slow meltdowns, a 1961 incident in Idaho demonstrated the potential for explosive power. The SL-1, or Stationary Low Power Reactor No. 1, was a small experimental reactor designed for the U.S. Army. During a maintenance procedure, a single control rod was withdrawn too far, too quickly from the reactor's core. This instantly caused the reactor to go prompt critical, unleashing an enormous surge of power in just 4 milliseconds. The energy flash vaporized the water in the core, causing a massive steam explosion. The blast was so violent that it shot the entire 12,000-kilogram reactor vessel 9 feet into the air. Tragically, all 3 military personnel working on the reactor were killed, one of them by being impaled to the ceiling by a shield plug ejected from the reactor. It remains one of the few fatal reactor accidents in U.S. history, a grim illustration of the raw physical forces at play within a nuclear core. One of the most haunting and visible consequences of the Chernobyl disaster was the creation of the Red Forest, a large pine forest located directly in the path of the most intense radioactive fallout received such a massive dose of radiation that the trees died almost instantly. The radiation damage caused the pine needles to turn a ghostly ginger-brown color, giving the area its eerie name. The forest became so contaminated that the dead trees themselves were a radiological hazard. In the cleanup that followed, the entire red forest was bulldozed and buried in trenches, covered with a layer of sand to contain the radiation. Paradoxically, in the decades since, the wider Chernobyl exclusion zone has become a haven for wildlife. With humans gone, populations of wolves, wild boar, and even the rare Przewalski's horse have flourished, turning a site of nuclear devastation into a unique and accidental nature preserve. It makes one wonder if you have a favorite place in nature that feels particularly peaceful or resilient. Not all nuclear accidents involve power plants. The 1987 Goiânia accident in Brazil was a radiological disaster caused by a piece of stolen medical equipment. 2 men, looking for scrap metal, broke into an abandoned radiotherapy clinic and stole a teletherapy unit. Thinking it was valuable, they took it apart in a junkyard, breaking open the protective casing and exposing the highly radioactive cesium-137 chloride salt inside. The junkyard owner was mesmerized by the salt, which glowed with an eerie blue light in the dark. He took it home, showing it off to friends and family. Children played with the glowing powder, rubbing it on their skin like glitter. Over several days, people passed the radioactive material around their community, completely unaware of the deadly poison they were handling. By the time authorities discovered what had happened, hundreds of people were contaminated, dozens were hospitalized, and 4 people died a painful death from acute radiation sickness. After the meltdowns at Fukushima, the immediate goal was to bring the damaged reactors into a state known as cold shutdown. This is a crucial milestone in managing a nuclear accident. It doesn't mean the reactor is fixed, but rather that the cooling systems are stable and the temperature of the water circulating through the reactor core is consistently held below its boiling point of 100 degrees Celsius. Achieving this state means that the core is no longer at risk of overheating and releasing more radiation, and the situation is considered stable. Reaching this milestone at Fukushima was a monumental task, involving makeshift cooling systems using fire engines and patched-together pipework. It took a full 9 months of continuous, desperate effort by thousands of workers before the Japanese government could finally declare in December 2011 that all 3 damaged reactors had officially reached a state of cold shutdown, marking the end of the immediate crisis. Beyond the clean air, one of the most remarkable and often overlooked benefits of nuclear power is its incredibly small land footprint. To generate the same amount of electricity as a typical 1,000 megawatt nuclear facility, you would need a solar farm covering roughly 75 square miles, an area larger than many cities. For wind power, the turbines would need to be spread across more than 300 square miles to achieve the same annual output, accounting for the space between them. A nuclear plant, in stark contrast, occupies just a single square mile. This incredible power density means that vast tracts of land can be preserved for nature, agriculture, or human communities. In a world where land is an increasingly precious resource, the ability to generate immense, reliable power from such a tiny parcel of Earth is an advantage that is difficult to overstate. It allows for energy independence without sacrificing the wild and open spaces that are so vital to our planet's health and our own sense of well-being. This efficiency extends not just to space, but also to time. Nuclear power plants operate with a reliability that is unmatched by nearly any other energy source. This is measured by something called the capacity factor, which is the ratio of the actual electrical energy produced over a given period to the maximum possible energy it could have produced. Nuclear plants in the United States, for instance, consistently achieve a capacity factor of over 92%. This means they are generating maximum power almost all the time, day and night, regardless of weather. By comparison, solar panels have a capacity factor of around 25%, as they only work when the sun is shining, and wind turbines hover around 35%, dependent on the whims of the breeze. This near-constant operation makes nuclear energy a uniquely dependable source of baseload power, providing the steady, unwavering foundation upon which a stable and modern electrical grid can be built, ensuring the lights stay on through every season. And the benefits produced within those reactor walls extend far beyond the electrical grid, reaching directly into our hospitals and clinics. Many nuclear reactors are specifically designed or adapted to produce life-saving medical isotopes. These are radioactive elements that, when used in tiny, controlled amounts, become powerful tools for medicine. Isotopes like technetium-99m are the backbone of nuclear medicine, used in over 40 million diagnostic procedures each year, allowing doctors to see inside the body to detect cancer, heart disease, and other illnesses with incredible precision. Other isotopes, such as cobalt-60, are used in radiation therapy to target and destroy cancerous tumors, and also to sterilize medical equipment, from syringes to surgical gloves, ensuring they are safe for patient use. Without the controlled chain reactions happening inside nuclear reactors, much of modern medical diagnostics and treatment would simply not be possible. The immense heat generated by nuclear fission can also be harnessed to solve one of humanity's most pressing challenges: the scarcity of fresh water. The process is called nuclear desalination. By using the waste heat from a reactor, which would otherwise be vented into the atmosphere, massive amounts of seawater can be boiled to produce steam, which is then condensed into pure, drinkable water, leaving the salt behind. This process is far more energy efficient and scalable than other desalination methods that rely on fossil fuels. Several countries are already operating or developing nuclear desalination plants, recognizing the potential to provide a drought-proof source of fresh water for coastal cities, agriculture, and industry. In a warming world where water stress is becoming more common, the ability of a single nuclear facility to produce both clean electricity and millions of gallons of clean water represents a powerful synergy for a sustainable future. Perhaps one of the most misunderstood aspects of nuclear energy is its waste. While it is true that the spent fuel is radioactive, its volume is astonishingly small, and unlike the gaseous waste from fossil fuels which is dispersed into the atmosphere, all of it is contained. In fact, all the used nuclear fuel produced by the entire US, commercial nuclear industry over the last 60 years could fit on a single American football field stacked to a depth of less than 10 yards. This waste is a solid ceramic material, not a green glowing liquid, and it is stored securely in steel-lined concrete pools of water and then in massive, impenetrable dry casks. This approach of concentrating and containing waste in a small, guarded area stands in stark contrast to other industries that release their pollutants freely into the environment. Is there something about small, well-organized spaces that you find uniquely relaxing to think about as you drift off? This principle of packing immense power into a small, long-lasting package has allowed humanity to explore the darkest reaches of our solar system. For missions traveling far from the sun, where solar panels become useless, nuclear power is the only viable option. These spacecraft are powered by radioisotope thermoelectric generators, or RTGs. They are essentially nuclear batteries, using the heat from the natural decay of a radioactive material, typically plutonium-238, to generate a steady flow of electricity. RTGs have powered iconic missions like the Voyager probes, which have been operating for over 4 decades and are now in interstellar space. They have also been the reliable heart of Mars rovers like Curiosity and Perseverance, allowing them to operate through punishing Martian nights and dust storms. This technology provides the constant, decades-long power needed for instruments, communications, and movement, making it an indispensable tool for uncovering the secrets of the cosmos. Back on Earth, the high-quality heat from nuclear reactors offers a pathway to decarbonize heavy industries that electricity alone cannot easily clean up. Many essential industrial processes, like the production of steel, cement, and chemicals, require incredibly high temperatures that are currently generated by burning fossil fuels. Advanced nuclear reactors, especially new designs that operate at much higher temperatures, can provide this process heat directly, in the form of steam or hot gas, without any carbon emissions. This steam can also be used for one of the most promising clean energy applications, creating hydrogen fuel through electrolysis. By providing both the electricity and the heat needed to split water into hydrogen and oxygen efficiently, nuclear power could become the engine for a future hydrogen economy, providing clean fuel for transportation, shipping, and manufacturing, further reducing our reliance on fossil fuels across the entire economy. This deep reliability translates directly into economic stability. While the initial construction of a nuclear power plant is a significant investment, the ongoing fuel costs are remarkably low and predictable. Uranium, the fuel for nuclear reactors, is abundant, and a very small pellet, the size of a pencil eraser, contains as much energy as a ton of coal. Because the fuel component makes up such a tiny fraction of the overall operating cost, the price of electricity from a nuclear plant is incredibly stable over time.
It is not subject to the wild price swings and geopolitical volatility that affect natural gas, oil, and coal markets.
This price certainty provides a powerful economic advantage for industries and consumers alike, creating a predictable energy landscape that encourages long-term investment and protects households from sudden spikes in their electricity bills, acting as a quiet, stabilizing force for the entire economy. A nuclear power plant is more than just a source of energy. It's a long-term engine for local economic growth. The construction phase alone creates thousands of jobs, but the real benefit lies in the permanent, high-quality jobs required to operate the plant for its 60 to 80-year lifespan. A typical plant employs between 400 and 700 people directly, including highly skilled engineers, physicists, reactor operators, security personnel, and maintenance technicians. These are stable, well-paying careers that support families and local businesses for generations. Beyond direct employment, the plant contributes significantly to the local tax base, funding schools, hospitals, and infrastructure projects. The economic ripple effect is immense, creating thousands of additional indirect jobs in the surrounding community. This long-term economic partnership turns a power plant into a cornerstone of a thriving local region, providing not just power, but prosperity and opportunity. Finally, all these advantages culminate in one of nuclear's most critical roles, ensuring the stability of the entire electrical grid. The grid is a delicate balancing act where supply must precisely match demand in real time. The intermittent nature of solar and wind power can create fluctuations that strain the grid, requiring backup power sources to fill the gaps. Nuclear power provides the ultimate backup, a constant, unwavering supply of baseload electricity that operates 24/7. This creates a high inertia system, meaning it resists sudden changes in frequency and voltage. This inherent physical stability acts like a shock absorber for the grid, smoothing out the fluctuations from renewables and ensuring a consistent flow of power to homes and businesses. As more intermittent sources are added to the grid, the stabilizing presence of nuclear energy becomes ever more crucial to preventing blackouts and maintaining the reliable power system that underpins modern society. Despite its incredible power density, the economic story of a nuclear plant is a journey of extremes, often misunderstood by looking at simple price tags. The true cost is best understood through a concept called the levelized cost of electricity, or LCOE. This isn't just the price of fuel or construction, it's the total lifetime cost of the plant, from building it to running it, fueling it, and eventually taking it apart, all divided by the total electricity it's expected to produce over its decades-long life. For nuclear, this calculation reveals a strange paradox. The upfront construction costs are immense, among the highest of any energy source, making its LCOE appear very high at the beginning. However, once built, its fuel costs are remarkably low and stable, and its operational life is incredibly long, often 60 to 80 years. As the plant generates immense amounts of reliable power year after year, that enormous initial cost gets spread thinner and thinner, causing its long-term LCOE to become highly competitive, especially when compared to sources whose fuel prices can fluctuate wildly. This makes judging nuclear energy's cost a matter of perspective, a short-term financial hurdle for a long-term energy bargain. One of the most profound and unique financial challenges baked into every nuclear power plant is the certainty of its own demise. From the very first day it generates power, a plant is legally required to start saving for its own funeral. This process, known as decommissioning, involves safely dismantling the facility, decontaminating the site, and managing the remaining radioactive materials. A special fund, paid into by the utility company throughout the plant's life, is set aside for this colossal task. The projected costs are staggering, often running into the billions of dollars per reactor, sometimes even rivaling the original construction cost. The challenge lies in predicting these costs decades in advance. Inflation, changing regulations, and unforeseen technical difficulties can cause the actual decommissioning bill to be far higher than what was saved. This creates a delicate financial balancing act, ensuring that the generations who benefit from the plant's clean energy also pay the full price for its eventual and inevitable cleanup, without leaving an unfunded liability for the future. Modern nuclear projects are often plagued by what engineers call the first-of-a-kind problem, or FOAK. Because reactor designs are constantly evolving for better safety and efficiency, and because so few new plants have been built in recent decades, nearly every new project is essentially a prototype. It's the first time that specific design is being built at that scale, by that construction team, under that country's regulatory system. This lack of repetition and experience means supply chains are not established, construction crews are learning on the job, and regulators are scrutinizing every new component. The result is a pattern of staggering cost and schedule overruns. Projects like the Vaatal plant in the United States or the Olkiluoto 3 reactor in Finland saw their budgets more than double, and their construction timelines stretch out for over a decade beyond their original estimates. Each new build becomes a painful and expensive learning curve, a stark contrast to the mass production of solar panels or wind turbines, where experience and scale constantly drive down costs. Beyond technical approvals and government permits, every nuclear facility must earn something far more intangible and fragile: a social license to operate. This is the ongoing acceptance and approval of the plant by the local community and the wider public. A plant can have a perfect safety record and meet every legal requirement, but if it loses the trust of the people who live around it, it can face a death by 1,000 cuts. Protests can block supply routes, local governments can create political obstacles, and endless legal challenges can bleed the operator dry. Earning this social license requires radical transparency, genuine community engagement, and a demonstrable commitment to safety that goes far beyond press releases. The history of nuclear power is littered with examples where this license was revoked, as seen in the political movements in Germany and Japan following major accidents, proving that a reactor's ultimate success is powered not just by uranium, but by public trust. The conversation around where to build new nuclear facilities often crystallizes into a simple, powerful acronym, NIMBY, which stands for Not in My Backyard. This is the common sentiment where people may support nuclear energy in principle, but fiercely oppose the construction of a plant, a waste repository, or even a transport route anywhere near their own homes, citing concerns about safety, property values, and environmental impact. This phenomenon has been one of the biggest political hurdles for the industry's expansion. However, a counter-movement has also emerged, known as YIMBY, or Yes in My Backyard. This sentiment is often found in communities that already host nuclear plants or have a long history of industrial or military nuclear activity. For these residents, the plants are seen not as a threat, but as a source of high-paying, stable jobs, a significant tax base for local schools and services, and a point of community pride. They have first-hand experience with the technology's safety and reliability, creating a powerful advocacy base that actively campaigns for new reactors to be built in their own community. One of the deepest challenges to public acceptance of nuclear energy lies not in statistics, but in psychology. Researchers identify a specific cognitive bias known as dread risk. This is our tendency to fear things that have the potential for catastrophic, uncontrollable, and fatal consequences, even if the statistical probability of that event is incredibly low. A nuclear meltdown is the quintessential dread risk.
While data shows that nuclear power is statistically one of the safest forms of energy generation, far safer than fossil fuels whose air pollution causes millions of premature deaths annually, the nature of a nuclear accident is what captures our imagination and fear.
It evokes images of invisible poison, long-term contamination, and a disaster that unfolds on a scale beyond human control. Our brains are not wired to calmly assess the low probability. They are wired to react to the high consequence outcome. This is why a single dramatic nuclear accident can shape public opinion for generations, outweighing decades of safe, routine operation. For the investors and utility companies who fund nuclear power plants, one of the most significant and chilling financial dangers is known as stranded asset risk. A nuclear plant is an unimaginably large investment designed to operate for 60 to 80 years to pay back its initial cost and turn a profit. A stranded asset is what that plant becomes if it's forced to shut down prematurely, long before it has generated enough revenue to cover its costs. This could happen for a variety of reasons. A sudden change in government policy, driven by a shift in public opinion after an accident elsewhere in the world, could force a fleet of perfectly good reactors to close. The sudden arrival of a much cheaper, revolutionary energy technology could make the plant economically obsolete. Or new safety regulations could require upgrades so expensive that it's cheaper to close the plant than to refit it. This immense risk of having a multi-billion-dollar asset turned into a liability overnight makes securing private funding for new nuclear projects an incredibly difficult proposition. The public's fear of radiation is often absolute, viewing any exposure as inherently harmful, but the reality is far more nuanced, a fact playfully illustrated by the banana equivalent dose. Bananas are naturally rich in potassium, and a tiny fraction of all potassium is a radioactive isotope called potassium-40. Eating one banana exposes you to a very small, harmless dose of radiation, about 0.1 microsieverts. This unit of measurement provides a wonderfully relatable scale for understanding radiation. It helps contextualize the tiny additional doses that might be received from living near a normally operating nuclear power plant, which are often comparable to eating a few bananas a year. It shows that radiation is a natural part of our world. We are exposed to it from cosmic rays, the soil, and even our own bodies. The danger is always in the dose, not its mere presence. This concept helps demystify radiation, shifting the conversation from a black and white fear to a more rational understanding of levels and risk, where a banana is not a danger, but a helpful unit of perspective. The image of nuclear energy in the public mind has been profoundly shaped not just by real-world events, but by the powerful lens of media and popular culture. The 1979 film The China Syndrome, released just 12 days before the real-life 3 Mile Island accident, depicted a terrifying near meltdown, cementing a narrative of corporate cover-ups and catastrophic failure in the minds of millions. Television shows, most famously The Simpsons, have for decades used the bumbling safety standards of the Springfield nuclear power plant as a running joke, creating a cultural shorthand that associates nuclear energy with incompetence and glowing green rods. While fictional, these portrayals have an outsized impact on public perception. They create an emotional backdrop of anxiety and distrust that is incredibly difficult to counter with technical data and safety statistics. The dramatic, visual storytelling of a potential disaster often proves more memorable and influential than the quiet, invisible reality of decades of safe, clean power generation. A fascinating shift is occurring in the demographics of nuclear energy support, revealing a significant generational divide. For many in the baby boomer generation, their perception of nuclear technology was forged in the shadow of the Cold War, the atomic bomb, and the intense anxieties of nuclear proliferation and accidents like Chernobyl.
Their skepticism is rooted in a lifetime of cautionary tales. In contrast, younger generations, like millennials and Gen Z, are growing up with a different existential threat looming over their future: climate change. For many of them, nuclear energy is viewed not through the lens of Cold War fear, but as a powerful, proven tool to decarbonize the grid and fight global warming. They are often more pragmatic, more likely to trust the scientific consensus on its safety, and more willing to embrace it as a necessary part of the solution. This creates a quiet but powerful shift in the conversation, where the technology's greatest advocates are increasingly those with the most at stake in the planet's future. It makes me wonder, what is the first memory or feeling that comes to mind for you when you hear the words nuclear energy? While the atom has shown us its immense power through fission, the splitting of heavy elements, the ultimate dream of nuclear science looks to the stars for inspiration. The future may lie in fusion, the very process that powers our sun. Inside immense, donut-shaped machines called tokamaks, powerful magnetic fields will attempt to contain a swirling plasma of hydrogen isotopes heated to over 100 million degrees Celsius, many times hotter than the sun's core. At these temperatures, the atoms overcome their natural repulsion and fuse together, releasing a tremendous amount of energy. The fuel, derived from water and lithium, is abundant, and the primary byproduct is harmless helium. The process creates no long-lived radioactive waste and is inherently safe. If containment is lost, the plasma simply cools and the reaction stops instantly. It is the grandest challenge in modern physics, a quest to build a miniature Earth-bound star to provide limitless, clean energy. This grand challenge of fusion is being pursued through two primary approaches. The magnetic confinement method, used in tokamaks like the massive International ITER project, acts like an invisible magnetic bottle to hold the superheated plasma. The alternative is inertial confinement, which takes a radically different path. Instead of sustained containment, it aims for a momentary, overwhelming burst of energy. At facilities like the National Ignition Facility in the United States, an array of nearly 200 of the world's most powerful lasers are all focused onto a single point, a tiny pellet, smaller than a peppercorn, containing deuterium and tritium fuel. For a few billionths of a second, the lasers heat and compress this pellet with such force that it implodes, triggering a brief but powerful fusion reaction, like a microscopic hydrogen bomb. It was this method that, in 2022, achieved ignition for the first time in history, producing more energy from the fusion reaction than was delivered to the fuel target by the lasers. While fusion remains a long-term goal, a more immediate evolution in nuclear power is the development of small modular reactors, or SMRs. These are not the giant gigawatt-scale power plants we are used to, but much smaller, self-contained units, typically producing under 300 megawatts. The key innovation is in their manufacturing. Instead of being built piece by piece over a decade on site, SMRs are designed to be constructed entirely in a factory and shipped to their destination by truck, train, or barge. This assembly line approach promises to drastically reduce construction costs and timelines. Their smaller size allows for more flexible placement, bringing carbon-free power to remote communities, industrial complexes, or data centers that don't require a massive plant. Their design also incorporates advanced passive safety features, meaning they can safely shut down without human intervention or external power, making them exceptionally robust. Taking the concept of miniaturization even further are microreactors, often described as nuclear batteries. These are exceptionally small, transportable fission reactors, some designed to fit within a standard shipping container and capable of producing between 1 and 20 megawatts of electricity. Their purpose is not to power cities, but to provide reliable energy in the most challenging and isolated environments. Imagine a remote military base, a disaster relief zone that has lost its grid, a mining operation in the Arctic, or even a future lunar or Martian colony. A microreactor could be delivered, switched on to provide power for a decade or more without refueling, and then removed for replacement or disposal. They are designed to be almost entirely self-regulating, operating like a long-lasting battery that provides constant, dependable power wherever it is needed, fundamentally changing the logistics of energy in off-grid locations. One of the most revolutionary future designs is the molten salt reactor, or MSR, a type of Generation 4 reactor that completely rethinks nuclear fuel. Instead of solid fuel rods, an MSR dissolves its fuel, uranium or thorium, directly into a liquid molten salt coolant. This liquid mixture is then pumped through a core to achieve criticality and generate heat. This fluid state has a profound safety advantage. The reactor is designed with a simple freeze plug at the bottom of the core vessel, a section of pipe that is kept frozen by an external cooler. If the reactor ever overheats or loses power, the cooler shuts off, the plug melts, and the liquid fuel simply drains by gravity into a passively cooled containment tank, where the geometry of the tank makes a chain reaction impossible. A catastrophic meltdown becomes a physical impossibility. Furthermore, this design can operate at higher temperatures and lower pressures, increasing efficiency and eliminating the need for the massive, high-pressure containment domes of conventional reactors. Closely linked to the potential of molten salt reactors is the prospect of using a new fuel source, thorium. Thorium itself is not fissile, meaning it cannot sustain a chain reaction on its own. However, when it absorbs a neutron, it transforms into uranium-233, which is an excellent nuclear fuel. This thorium fuel cycle holds several incredible advantages. Thorium is estimated to be 3 to 4 times more abundant in the Earth's crust than uranium, with vast deposits found all over the world. The process produces far less transuranic waste, the very long-lived radioactive elements like plutonium that are a primary concern in today's used fuel. This means the resulting waste requires a much shorter storage period, on the order of a few hundred years rather than hundreds of thousands. Critically, the process makes it extremely difficult to produce materials suitable for nuclear weapons, offering a more proliferation-resistant form of nuclear energy for the future. The dream of nuclear power isn't confined to Earth. For humanity to truly explore the solar system, we need propulsion systems far more advanced than the chemical rockets of today. This is the promise of nuclear thermal propulsion, or NTP. In an NTP engine, a compact nuclear fission reactor is used not to generate electricity, but to superheat a propellant, typically liquid hydrogen, to extreme temperatures, over 2,500 degrees Celsius. This hot gas is then expelled through a nozzle at incredibly high velocities, generating thrust. An NTP rocket would be more than twice as efficient as the best chemical engines, effectively doubling the miles per gallon of spacecraft. This efficiency would slash the travel time for a crewed mission to Mars from a grueling 8 or 9 months down to a more manageable 4 or 5, reducing the crew's exposure to deep space radiation and the psychological strains of long-duration spaceflight. Back on Earth, nuclear power is also setting sail. The world's first operational floating nuclear power plant, Russia's Akademik Lomonosov, is a testament to this unique application. It is essentially a large, non-self-propelled barge equipped with 2 small modular reactors, similar to those used to power icebreaker ships. It is towed to a coastal location, moored to the shore, and connected to the local grid, providing both electricity and heat. The concept is designed for the remote corners of the globe, particularly Russia's vast Arctic regions, where building a traditional land-based plant is impractical or impossible. These floating plants can power remote port towns, offshore oil and gas platforms, or large mining operations.
When their service life is over or they need refueling, they can simply be disconnected and towed back to a specialized facility, leaving a minimal footprint on the fragile Arctic environment. As you relax and think about these future wonders, does the idea of a floating nuclear plant drifting peacefully in a remote harbor seem more like science fiction or an inevitable part of our future? The immense heat generated by nuclear reactors can solve another of humanity's most pressing problems: water scarcity. The process of turning salt water into fresh water, desalination, is incredibly energy-intensive. By pairing a nuclear power plant with a large-scale desalination facility, the two challenges can be tackled at once in a process called nuclear desalination. The low-pressure steam and waste heat from the reactor, which is often released into the environment through cooling towers, can instead be perfectly channeled to boil seawater and distill it into pure, drinkable water. A single, large nuclear reactor could produce enough clean energy to power a major city and generate hundreds of millions of gallons of fresh water every single day. For arid, coastal nations, this cogeneration approach offers a path to both energy independence and water security, transforming a nuclear byproduct into a life-sustaining resource for millions. Perhaps the most profound promise of future nuclear technology is its potential to clean up the legacy of its past. Advanced fourth-generation reactor designs, particularly a class known as fast reactors, are being specifically developed to consume the nuclear waste we have already created. Today's reactors are only able to extract a small fraction of the energy available in their uranium fuel, leaving behind a complex mix of elements in what we call spent fuel. A fast reactor can use this spent fuel as its own fuel source. In the process, it can burn up the most troublesome, long-lived components, like plutonium and other actinides, transmuting them into elements that decay to safe levels in just a few centuries, instead of millennia. This would not only generate vast amounts of carbon-free electricity from our existing waste stockpiles, but could also dramatically shrink the volume and required isolation time of the world's high-level nuclear waste, effectively closing the nuclear fuel cycle and turning a multi-generational liability into a valuable asset for a clean energy future. Thank you for joining this calming exploration of nuclear energy. If you've enjoyed these relaxing facts and would like more bedtime-friendly science to help you drift off, please consider subscribing and joining us again for our next journey.